Hey everyone, it's Jim Chapman with Local Leaders the Podcast, and I want to make you aware of a fantastic deal they have going on right now at Fit Body Boot Camp in Denham Springs, Louisiana. If you go to the link getfitdenhamsprings.com/local leaders, you can get $30 off of the regular price of $129 for 30 days of classes. Go to the link, click it, sign up. 30-day classes for only $99 through that link. It's a special deal offered to all of our listeners at Local Leaders, the podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Listen Up Livingston. This is a community version of Local Leaders, the podcast, and there's a guy sitting across from me, actually one of my largest downloaded podcasts. So wow. You've got over 20,000 overall with the audio version of the podcast. So Tracy Girlinghouse, the District 7 Councilman, welcome back.
I guess that means a lot of people either like me or hate me.
That's right.
They love watching me or
love
hating watching me.
That's it. That's how you get those views. I mean, they don't, you're right. I mean, either they hate you or like you, but they watch you either way. Yeah. So you work hard. It has been a lot of work lately. One of the things that kind of spurred us getting together was the moratorium that has taken place recently. And before we I want to ask you some questions about that, but I also want to state I was one of the guys initially totally against a moratorium. It's just, I grew up in the construction industry, and the last thing you want to be told is you can't go to work or you can't work. And so before I had enough information, I pushed back from that. And then I started listening to what y'all were saying, and I realized there was a need to kind of stop for a minute and get some ordinances passed that would help things. You ended up with a 2-month moratorium. What was originally proposed was a year, which I was totally against.
Yeah, me too.
So I thought the 2 months was a good option that you went with in the long run, and my mind was changed. I realized that was really the way to go. So first, just kind of tell me, maybe define that for people that aren't exactly familiar with what a moratorium is.
Well, in our case, it's basically a cease of all new development, commercial or residential,
right,
for a 60-day period. Look, it's in the end, it's going to be good. You're facing a situation where if you allow it to continue, yes, builders and construction workers can go and work, but we're kind of caught behind this wave of development that we can't get ahead of.
Yes.
And it's difficult. Or you put the moratorium in place and set the laws going forward.
Yes.
So you take the little punch or you take the big punch.
Right.
It's 60 days with a 30-day option to go from there. I don't think it'll go 90 days.
Yeah.
I don't. But I think it's good. You look, Ascension. What happened was Ascension put their moratorium in, so all those developers said, well, where can we go?
Right.
So it's not just people wanting to develop here. Normally you got essentially twice as many people wanting to develop here. And because they're going to try to go, let's go next door.
That's right.
Those guys don't have one, and so it's a whole bunch of development. So we're almost forced to just go, all right, stop.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. Look, it'll be fine. You know, and in the end, it'll be a good thing. I'm not for stopping work and anything, but part of being on the council in leadership is you have to be a leader, and sometimes it's not pretty.
No,
and
you make hard decisions,
and you do, and you have to go out there and say, look, what is best overall? Raise your hand, and you take the oath, and you sit in the chair. You lose the ability to do what you want.
Yeah,
and I really can't do what you want. I have to do what's best. And you have to look at the bigger picture and say, what's best for my constituents? What would be beneficial for them, even if it's a short-term punch in the gut? What's better for them over the long haul? And this is going to be better over the long haul. We're going to get some ordinances in place, road width, a standard on that where where you can build or not build on that. We've already tightened up the entrances where you got to have more entrances for less homes, which was an ordinance that I put in place 4 years ago, probably, because they didn't have any before that.
Yeah.
It was basically one entrance, 2,000 homes. And that was insane, and I would have made it like it is now. We changed it. I would have made it like it is then, but I couldn't get the votes then.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted, it was just too much too soon.
Right.
And a lot of times you have to back up and play the long game. And I felt in my heart that, something's better than nothing. And now I got it to about where I want it to be, but it took, it took that time for it to sink in and for it to happen.
Yeah.
And there's so many things. We're going to get these ordinances in place. We're going to be good. The density, I don't know, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
No. We are going to talk about that density ordinance and some other things. I do want to say, and it's important to note that just because you vote for or against something doesn't necessarily mean you individually agree with that. What it means is you're seeing an entire picture. One of the things that I saw, look, I don't like 2,000 house subdivisions any more than anybody else. I do think infrastructure is consistently a problem, especially when you're growing at a rate of like Livingston Parish. So I'm not someone that says, oh, yes, we need that there. We want these 2,000 houses. What I was looking at when I saw that was the year, first of all, and a year of that shutdown and what that does to the parish financially. You run a tight budget.
No, it is. A year of a moratorium for a year would be devastating.
Devastating.
And anybody that I will say anybody that's in government can see that.
Yeah.
We do walk a very tight budget, and you cannot go a year.
Yeah,
construction.
It would absolutely kill your community.
Ascension has a lot more things to go to.
They have plants there.
Yeah, and so they're still drawing money in that regard. We don't have the resources, not even close, that Ascension has. A lot of people compare the two parishes because they're
neighboring.
They're neighboring. They're about the same size, and but they have so many more resources that we don't have. And and in a large way, I'm thankful for that. I mean, I don't want all these plants over here. Yeah. It would be great from a financial standpoint as the guy who does the numbers, and you can look at that and go, well, that's great. We got money to work with, but what is the price?
Yeah. 2 heads.
Yeah. the price
a
you pay
third
for
eye,
that,
whatever you.
And ultimately, we're just trying to save. I'm just trying to save, my parish.
Yes.
And try to keep it to like it was the parish that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And more to the point, like even my city, like you talk about the development, yes, I voted to let that go through, Deer Run, but I'm not for it. If someone went in there if they would have gave us, if you watch it, I constantly question our attorney. Mm-hmm. Can we do this? Can we do this? Is that, if he would have said, well, yeah, that's a good thing to stand on, I'd have voted no right then and there. If he tells me you can do it, you have to take your legal advisor's advice.
Yes.
And those guys knew that.
Yeah.
And it was 4-4, which means it didn't pass. And I think we talked about it earlier about that. So,
yeah, I had some people wondering in a tie vote, which way do you go?
Well, it goes like this. You have to look at the question being raised. In this particular case, the question was to vote to pass to pass the legislation or whatever to go for Deer Run to go on.
Approve it.
Approve it.
Approve the plot.
That was the question. So yes is let's do that. No is no. Mm. You have to have a majority vote to pass the question.
Right.
So if it would have been if they'd have said, no, I want, if you'd have worded in a way where, where it says, someone already made a motion, I make a motion that we defer this or table it, then they would have needed 4 votes. They would have needed 5 votes to do that. Right. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so you have to follow the question and as it's presented.
And okay, so let me ask you this question. You did. You voted yes on it, and we've had many conversations, throughout the years on development. And I'm here to tell you, Tracy is no fan of giant subdivisions, and it's no secret. He's public about it.
And if anybody has watched any history, they know that.
Yeah.
Any history of what I've where I've been since I've been there.
Correct.
I was fighting it, and look, I've tried to put forth legislation to stop this early on, but nobody had the stomach for it.
Yeah.
I won't say nobody.
Well, you were
proactive.
Yeah. Instead of reactive.
And everybody knew there that we couldn't vote no.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of posturing going on there. Mm-hmm. Those guys who voted. Now I would say it might have been a question before on the last one. I got the Attorney General's opinion, but that eliminated all of it. If it meets the ordinance, you must vote, or you can be sued.
Did it meet the ordinance?
Yes, it met the ordinance, and so the question is, change the ordinance. I absolutely agree,
and
I absolutely
what you're
agree.
Working towards now,
and what I've been working towards,
yes.
And that's been you got to have 5 people. It's not, I'm not there by myself,
Yeah.
I got to have 4 other people go with me on that. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to move. A lot of councilmen don't want to move until the room gets heavy. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say this, the people of that district who showed up and to voice their concerns on this, to a large degree, that ship had already sailed, because the ordinance, you can't back up. Now, there was a time there I would think, hey, this might be good. They might find a way for us to stop this within the confines of the law.
Right.
But, they didn't. Everybody on that, every councilman up there knew that. Yeah. They knew when it come down to it, if they meet the ordinance, you have to vote for it.
And I will applaud some people that look, and it's a beautiful thing to see people show up at a council meeting.
That was the point I was going to make.
The problem, Tracy, is typically your people that show up for the council meeting are people that are against something. If they're for what you're doing, whatever it may be, they don't really show up and say, hey, here's a pat on the back. I'm for this.
But Jim, that's human nature.
It is.
And look, I will say this: if the room was that engaged all the time, then you would get government the way you expect it to. It makes meetings long. It makes a lot more cumbersome and harder. But I'm okay with that because when I was going through the huge development in my district, I fought the fight. I did, it wasn't as pressing, even though it was.
Yeah.
And people showed up, but they didn't, these group of residents, they were engaged and they came in hard. And if you did that, and if they held your elected officials accountable, then the government, they could move the room. And 100%. They can move, and that's what they're doing now. They're moving the narrative, and I love that.
Yeah,
I love that because, and I really do, because it's sitting back. I'm saying now we can get something done because these guys are feeling this, the pressure that, in the direction I want it to go. I've always wanted it to go, and you have to look and say who, and there's no nice way to put it, who is here to for their community to make positive changes. These things are obvious.
Yeah,
they're obvious. We
sure.
we have to change things, the way we do things, but a lot of guys don't. They think because no one's here in the room that they're doing okay. When you're doing okay.
Yeah, and
I've known we are not where we need to be.
Yeah,
but I know that I couldn't get out there. I've done that. I went out there by myself, and I've had some support from but you gotta have have 5, and then you're probably going to need 6.
Yeah,
ultimately when it comes down to it, and there's a lot of pressure coming from a lot of different ways and a lot of different angles. I don't feel that, you know, I because I you know, I'm here for a reason. I'm not here to put my name on a sign. I'm out there to help my community, you know, my district and my community be better.
That's
be
right.
better at what they do. And I looked at, you know, when I first got in, I looked at my predecessors, you know, Mr. Stan Kane, Thomas Watson, Ricky Goff, all three. I know all three of them. Mm-hmm. I grew up with Stan. We went to high school together. Yep.
Good people.
Thomas is from Denham. I don't hold that against him too much, but you know,
I don't blame you.
But I served with Thomas in the Army, in the National Guard.
Okay.
I know him. And Ricky's just, you know, just a staple of the community, man. This guy volunteers so much of his time and worked hard, and a good guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, their approach was always kind of straightforward.
Sure.
You know, I'm going to go in, I'm going to present this straightforward. And I tried that. And then, you know, I realized that, look, it didn't work for them. It's not going to work for me either. So, you know, I backed up and I tried a different tactic. And that was more present what I want. And then eventually you kind of have to let people get burned.
Yeah.
You know,
sadly.
And once they get burned, then they start seeing it in a different light.
Yeah.
You know, but you have to not worry about electability.
That's right. That's right.
And I don't worry about that. You know, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy being there. But if it comes down to what's best or how people are going to look at me about that, if I take that, that's not a question. Yeah. I'm going to go with what's best every time.
Very good.
Every time. And
that's all you can ask for out of your councilman.
And I thought I know, and I still believe this. Zoning's going to fix most of this stuff. And that was a big bite. It still is, you know, but
and you've been a proponent of zoning, incidentally, for a long time.
And look, it's so far down. It's got so much momentum now that I feel like it's a foregone conclusion, you know, but I'm not going to treat it like that. It's like anything else. You have to see it through to the end and be vigilant and stay on top of it, because, you know, something can come out of nowhere and try to derail you. So, you kind of have to have your ear to the door and, you know, stay on top of things, because look, parish government is a jungle of apex predators, man.
You're
it
right.
is. And you better have a game plan when you enter that jungle. Yeah. And I do, and I have, and it's worked so far. It's going to work, you know, it's going to work out. But, you know, part of me kind of, we had this big argument over the 2.5 density of the 2.0 density, you know, that zoning, if you zone your stuff correctly, that's irrelevant.
That's right.
It's irrelevant. That's right. We're going to have like a 1.0 density, or, you know, you can develop it however you want to. Yeah. Or you can be as restrictive, or you can be as open as you want to. If you give your map the due diligence that it deserves before you present it, you know, and I'm going to go to my predecessor. I'm going to go to Ricky and get him to look at it. I'm going to get the mayor to look at it. I'm going to get even a developer that I know and trust, you know, who's from the community. I'm going to get him to look at it, and he's going to give me, you know, because look, you look at those guys at the enemy, and probably a lot of them are, you know, but some aren't. They want it to be done correctly, and they want it to, because they live here too. Yeah, and some of these developers, and I think I know the one you're speaking of, are love this parish as much as anybody else. And those guys are not enemies because they're developers. That is their chosen profession and what they love to do. And you got to have them. I mean, you got to have them. You got to have these guys. But going back to my point, all the people showing up, they had a young lady, she got up there and she did some homework and thought she had truly believed that she had found a discrepancy that would have required Deer Run. You're talking about the last meeting? Yes. To go back and ask for approval again, basically, which would have locked them into the moratorium. The problem was the way that plat was written.
The discrepancy that she thought existed was the sewer hookup.
Yeah.
Sewer treatment plant that they build or hooking up to city sewer. The issue was the plat had both on there, which with some foresight by the engineer, I would imagine. One thing with the city of Denham Springs right now is it's not a moratorium, but for all intents and purposes, it's a moratorium. They just call it something else.
Yeah.
But essentially, the sewer plant is getting close to capacity. They're like at 80% capacity right now. So they're trying to come up with some solutions to solve that issue, and they're not allowing people to hook up to that city sewer right now in developments.
Yeah.
Because of that, this engineer must have had the foresight to say, hey, in the event that we can't do this, we can have a treatment plant, a water treatment plant of our own until we can hook up to the city sewer in this case. It was just a smart way to write it. And so in the end, the young lady must have missed that. And I applaud her for even looking, man. That took homework.
I was going to say that. Look, I was thoroughly impressed with, because I know she did some homework.
Yeah,
she dug
on her own time.
On her own time, and I was like, wow, because if you watch that meeting, I looked at the attorney. I said, well, is this good? And if he would have said, yeah, you got that qualifies, I would have been like, nope.
Yeah,
I would have said nope.
Yeah. But in your mind, and really what I feel was the right decision, and don't everybody jump on me for this, but you have got to follow the law.
Well, yeah.
And because what happens is when you vote no, and four guys did vote no, Wascom, Delat, Mack, and G-Boy all voted no to that, even though it followed every ordinance, all of your ordinances that you had written or in parish government, they still voted no. Yeah. And that's a dangerous thing, because to me that sets some sort of precedent somewhere in the mind of, not just developers, but anybody. I mean, when you go against your own ordinances, to me that's an issue. I think you made the right decision. I think that Frog made the right decision. I think that Scooter made the right decision, and Jeff.
Look,
and it doesn't mean I'm for that. I'm not for that, but I'm for following the law.
Well, and you
can't just follow the law when it suits you.
It was the decision I didn't want to make. I mean, I'm not for big development. And look, these guys know this. They know that was a token vote. Mm-hmm. They all know that they can't. Look, our attorney has told them, you can't do it. And I would love for it to be able to be that way, where you could, if they found a loophole or found something to stop it, but it's not there.
Right.
And you're going to see I would imagine you're going to see that's going to change. I mean, that is going to happen. I know they have threatened a lawsuit, and
that's the problem with a token vote. When you make a token vote and it opens you up for a lawsuit, the issue becomes, now it costs the parish money. Now it costs me money. Now it costs every citizen money, because we've got to defend it. So it's not, to me, it's not the place to make a token vote to appease anybody. You just follow the law, and then you're safe.
Well, and you think they're not going to sit back? They're not going to go, well, we tried. No. Yeah. Because the law is on their side,
right? And the
unfortunately or fortunately, the law is on their side. And they know that. Our legal team knows that.
Yes.
And to me, it was, if you really cared, and I hate to be this blunt about it, we would have changed these laws ahead of time. Mm-hmm. We would have done that, and like several of us have tried in the past.
Yes.
And there was no stomach for it, but there is now.
Yeah.
And that's why it's terrible that we had to get to this point, But we're at that point, and now those those ordinances are going to change, and it's going to be stricter, a lot stricter. And look, I don't want to say we have made changes over the last, well, I've been 6.5 years. It's dramatically different from what it was when I took office.
100%.
But it needs to be dramatically different from what it is now.
Sure.
You never arrive.
That's right. It's a flowing document and legislation.
We should have checked down on this a long time ago, but you got to get the votes to do it.
Yeah.
And you got to have the wherewithal to see it through, and you got to be able to go, what's more important? Why am I here? Constantly ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
Why am I here? I'm not here to make friends. It's great to make friends.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if I feel a certain way about something, and how it affects my district, my city, my parish, and a lot of it's cut and dry, that's bad for us.
Yeah.
Let's change that.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part, is that you can't, for whatever reason, can't get some of these other guys to see it through with you.
Yeah.
Let's just change this stuff. Like I've always been matter of fact in that regard. I'm here. I work for my people, and have I done a good job? Could I think so. Could I have done better? Sure. Everybody can do better, but I do invest my time. I sit on committees. I take conference calls. I go to meetings, and everything is a learning process going forward. I'm committed to this job, and it's thankless at times, but that's okay. I didn't come to do this job to be thanked for it.
Right.
I didn't go in there thinking, well, this is going to be a cakewalk. I'm just going in there and do great things. To do great things requires great commitment. Mm-hmm. And I'm committed to my district. I'm committed to the parish. And unfortunately, whenever you try to follow the law, you have some guys that would rather grandstand, and stand there and say, "Hey, look, I'm for the people." Are you really?
Sandra Richard has been in the business of selling homes for over 20 years. This award-winning realtor brings the perfect blend of professionalism, integrity, and client satisfaction to every buying and selling transaction. A passion for both her clients and her community makes Sandra the perfect choice when buying or selling your home. So if you're in need, call the Cajun Lady, Sandra Richard, at 225-955-5484, or visit her on the web at sandrasellshouses.com. Sandra Richard, a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. Even in a parish the size of Livingston Parish, there are differences in where you live. You and I both encompass large cities in the parish.
Sure.
Someone like G-Boy or Mr. Delat are in more rural parts of the parish where it's a different life there. Most of the people that live out there don't care for the city life. I like both. I like the fact that I can drive 5 minutes to go to McDonald's, and I like the fact that if I was out in Maurepas, there would be no one around me, and I could it's just quiet, and I love that.
2 months is going to be a blip.
Yeah, that's not even noticeable.
I'm sure there's some people out there who'd be like, oh, well, no, not for me.
Sure.
But, it's like anything else in parish government. You have to look at the overall. You have to look at what's best. The moratorium, as it stands, the 60-day, when you factor in everything, it by far would needed to happen more than it needed to not happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It gives us a chance to go, let's get some stuff in place. Because look, if I bring a piece of legislation up, a lot of times people will try to tear it apart, or they'll want it. We all have a tendency to try to make something perfect before you introduce it and vote it through. And there is no such thing as a perfect ordinance. It'll never be perfect. So you work on it till it's really good. And then you make it law. And then you can always adjust it after the fact, because and you're going to. You can think it's perfect and then go back to it, in 6 months or a year and be like, well, what about this situation? So you go and you adjust that ordinance. I think I think there's a tendency now for people to just tear into everything, that we're trying to do. And I think there's going to be a tipping point where we go, we've worked on this long enough. Let's put it through and move on.
The schools were a major concern, and look, I put 3 children through Livingston Parish Public Schools, and so I get it. And it's a huge issue with the schools right now. And, there's not enough teachers. There's an exorbitant amount of students to the point that some are at capacity. So that was also a concern outside of, just the drainage impacts from these giant subdivisions and the infrastructure impacts. What are your thoughts on that?
As it relates to
just as it relates to, I know the school board had come to one of the meetings and kind of spoke on their thoughts.
I know that our schools, and I know it's generally speaking for the whole parish, but I know I've always considered the Walker school system and as basically the crown jewel of our community. It's a beautiful school, and it's I believe that it's taken decades and decades to get where it's at, and a lot of hard work from a lot of different generations of people to get where it's at. And I don't want to see our product that we have, and I've put 3 kids through myself.
Yeah,
I don't want to see our product get watered down, and that's essentially what we know that's happening. What we're being told that's happening.
Sure.
If you put too many kids in, and you don't have the teachers and the resources and the funded staff, then the product's going to get watered down, and you're not going to get if you consider your product the end result, the education level of the kid when he graduates.
Yeah.
So we have to change. Is money the issue? That's what we're being. That's what we were being told. That's what we were told at the meeting. And I can, I kind of take exception to what occurred in that meeting. So, they came, a school board member came and spoke, and he was like, this is where we're at. We're, we have a teacher shortage. I think he said roughly half can retire right now.
Yeah.
We are about middle of the parishes, like the 64 parishes. We're around the middle in pay. I think Ascension, he said, pays like $7,000 more per year, on average.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. Where I took exception was, they came and tasked us with this stuff. Now, I've been there 6.5 years. Not one time ever did a school board member come to me, or any of us guys that I know of, but I know for me, they said, look, we have an issue. Can you help us?
Yeah.
Or just, hey, make a statement, it's crazy, we're being overran, none of that stuff. And they came and presented some very good stuff. What I take exception is, there are 9 of us. We're duly elected. Mm-hmm. There are 9 of them. They are duly elected. At some point, it would have been their job to come to us. They handle the schools. Now, I know that's broad because you have, transportation and the buildings and the maintenance and all that stuff.
Sure.
But there are 9 of them who are elected by the public to handle that. Part of handling that is coming to us and saying, hey, we need some help. That's their job. Just like it's my job. I don't mind taking my bullet, my hit on that. But the only communication that occurred in the 6.5 years I've been there is when I reached out to them to ask them if they would like to do an impact fee. Mm-hmm. So they handle the schools, we handle everything else. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
We handle everything else. They handle the schools. So, I mean,
there should
have been more communication. And the only communication that occurred started when the council reached out to them. Yeah. And by that, I mean me.
Yeah.
I reached out to them
right.
on the council's behalf. Do you need help? We are where we are. Let's go forward. I'm willing to help.
Yeah. And you've got to communicate with each other, especially the council and like the school board, because there is a direct effect on both sides. And so love to see more of that. Communication is never a bad thing.
Well, no. And that's, we get bogged down in what we do, which is,
sure.
But I'm willing to go, look, this is where we're at now. What help, do you need help? Let's help you. You know, and that's what happened. I know there should have been more communication between the the council and the school board, and there still needs to be some to some degree. I'm willing to help.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna go with something going forward. They got the study to us, and if there's an impact fee on new development, then we'll go forward with that. If that's what they have a number, we'll go with that number, and understand that need people to understand that this is on new development. So if someone moves in and they buy a house, they're going to pay for the privilege of going to our schools, above and beyond. And if you don't like that, don't move here.
Yeah, because
we can't have people keep coming in and expect our product to be the same. You have spent, the people who have been here have spent way too much money and have way too much invested in our schools to have it be watered down.
It's one of the prides of our parish is
absolutely
our school performance and the wonderful teachers we have here and staff and principals and all of those things, but that comes at a cost. And,
absolutely.
And you don't want them overran to the point where the quality of education goes down. The teachers are teaching 50 kids in a classroom or whatever.
And make no mistake, it will. It will if we don't do something.
That's right.
That's will. Right. And I don't like saying that, but there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're being proactive. You came up with this impact fee. And hopefully that will, and I know it will help some. I'd love to see them, take some of that fee. And if you need to attract more teachers, give them a raise.
Well, I mean, ultimately, our plan is to they manage their money well, as far as I can tell.
Sure.
I'm not going to try to tell them what they can and can't do with that money. If an impact fee is imposed, they'll spend it wisely.
Yeah. That's right.
And I think managing that would be a battle I don't want to get into, because I trust them to spend the money wisely.
Hopefully everybody realizes that Tracy is not for 2,000 house subdivisions.
No.
He made his decision based off of what the law dictates and what he is legally able to do as a councilman. And he did just that. I'm not on the council, but I felt the same way. I didn't want a 2,000. That's right down the street from my house, but I didn't want it.
The big argument over Deer Run, and then right after that, they had two other developments, same district
that were
approved. No argument whatsoever. You know what the difference was? People in the room.
Correct.
People in the room.
That's right.
Was it Nickens Lake? Two filings there.
Yep.
Foxtail.
Yes.
Yeah. Those two. No, smaller.
Well, one was like 700 houses or something.
I can't remember. But I don't think it was that big.
No.
But, it doesn't matter. Impact is impact. There was no outrage on those. So
the people in the room made the difference.
Yes. But more to the point was, those guys met the ordinance and it went through. So my question is, why wasn't there an outrage on those, and not from the public standpoint, but from the council standpoint? Those people arguing a point where they meet the ordinance. Now I get it meets the ordinance, but so did Deer Run.
Yes.
So,
and that was the attorney's whole argument was you can't pick and choose who you approve if they all meet the ordinance, because that's when you become in legal jeopardy.
Which is what they did in the same meeting from one item to the next.
Right.
Like, you're good.
Yeah.
You, I have a problem with.
Yeah.
Essentially, they were the same except just by size and people in the room.
We'll move on to another subject and something else that's getting a little bit of chatter on Facebook, especially is.
Well, we need to address it then.
We definitely do. It's
Facebook.
Facebook. That's it. And that is the new protocol, I guess you could say, in which people are able to address the council. BJ Pawn and Gun in Denham Springs wants to buy your unwanted gold jewelry, gold coins, and gold bullion. With 30 years of experience operating in the Livingston Parish area, BJ Pawn wants to be your source when selling your gold. So stop by BJ Pawn today for a no-obligation offer. BJ Pawn, a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. Just my personal opinion on it, and then I'll give you an opinion opposed to that and why, and then I'm going to let you speak on it. So I personally agreed with that, and before I even get into it, what the council is asking that you do is basically when you come to a meeting, on the agenda, everybody can print off an agenda on the website or whatever. You go to the meeting, you're going to sign your name on the agenda item that you want to talk about. This is going to curb, more than anything else, just the time aspect of these meetings and sticking to the subject that is at hand. What happens sometimes is people get up there to talk and they sway from one agenda item to the other, or something that's not even on the agenda that night, which you're not allowed to speak on. This is common practice anywhere, really. That's the whole point of an agenda, is so you stay on topic. But people tend to get off topic, human nature. You talk about one thing, you start getting fired up. The next thing you know, you're talking about something else, similar to Facebook comments. So in that respect, you just basically sign in on the agenda item that you want to discuss. I thought it was a good idea, and it is not rare. This is done in all our neighboring parishes. As a matter of fact, there's probably only 10 councils in the entire state that do not require you to sign in. Most of your school boards require you to sign in. So something I agree with, I thought would speed the meetings along. One thing with the parish council meetings is they can be long.
You think?
Very long.
I hadn't noticed.
And this is something that will maybe help with that. So I'm for it personally. I heard someone that I talked to that said, well, I'm not for it. And I said, why? And they said, well, I've been to school board meetings. I use the school board as an example. And I didn't intend on speaking on something. And things were said in the meeting where I was like, well, I need to speak on this. And I was told, no, I couldn't, because I didn't sign in on the agenda before the meeting. Yeah. So that's the against. I can kind of see that side,
I can totally see that, yeah.
So I guess from the council standpoint, tell me, am I right in assuming that this is the whole intention of this is to kind of speed things up and keep people on topic?
Right. It's not just the public. It's more like council too.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why this goes on and on is because the council members interject themselves. I'm the chairman of the ordinance committee. I handle the ordinance committee a little different because that is where the language of ordinances get put together.
Right.
So in my approach, because I've been the chairman of the council before, I've been chairman of finance, chairman of the ordinance committee. I like the discussion type atmosphere. I'm not that strict. I let the councilman talk back and forth, and we go around, because that's where the structure of the ordinance gets assembled.
Yes.
And public input is always good. It's been a little crazier as of late because people are coming, which I love. And that's another thing. I don't mind being there 3 hours, 3.5 hours for a meeting, as long as it's productive.
Yes.
3 hours, and and a lot of it isn't. I understand why it's being done this way, and you're right. It is. It's done this way almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Now I'll say this, and the council meetings are in itself is a business meeting. It's a meeting to discuss business of what the parish is doing. It's kind of get confused for like a town hall. Mm-hmm. It's not meant to be that way.
Yeah.
If you sign in, and this is what, in speaking with Chairman Ard, intent going forward is, you're going to have a time frame, and I'm sure he's going to set that. If it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and that person's going to have an uninterrupted 2, 3, 4 minutes, whichever. Set. Typically, it's 3. I think that's what he's saying. 3.
Yeah.
Uninterrupted. You have the floor. Now, this is the legal Robert's Rules way of doing it. Mm-hmm. The chairman has the floor. He surrenders the floor to whomever is there. If it's another councilman, if it's a person from the public, they speak. You have the floor. So you have your time frame. Then I would ask your questions at the end, or you can ask me. You go, I would like to see this. I need to answer this, and this, and this. You sit down. Then you can't. We're not going to he's not going to let anybody interrupt you as you're speaking, but you're going to stay on point. The councilman, the chairman is the only one who can stop someone from speaking. Hey, technically, as Robert's Rules go, if you get off subject, I'll be like, hold. Point of order. You need to stay on topic, and that becomes and look, it's problematic. I understand. Sometimes you kind of people get up there and they get nervous and they start talking and they get off. And look, I've done it too. The chairman might drag you back in, stay on point. I think what happens is council members will kind of jump in to answer the question right then, because a lot of them think that they are helping the process, but you're really hurting it. You wait until they're done, then you answer the question. And I think it's become more of a problem just because of the way society is now, you got to get your words in before. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with that. If you come there, you can sign in and do it, and you're going to get your time and you're going to be called in order. As far as someone coming in and like not planning to speak and then have a question, I mean, I don't have an answer for that one.
Well, I could give him a suggestion, and that is, I think the commonality of that is not super common. I'm sure it can come up. If it's someone that feels like they, maybe they're not planning on speaking, but they're worried about that, sign in. And if you don't want to speak, stand up and say, I changed my mind.
Sign in on everything.
Yeah.
I love that the public's there.
Yes.
Because, I mean, they're driving the machine there.
Correct.
But they're the one they're pushing to, and I'm happy to jump on and we'll get it done. I mean, I'm for stricter development. I don't like these that we've established, these huge developments. I do not like them. I cannot stand them.
All of us are for that smart development. And it's needed.
So I'm enjoying the fact that, because everything seems to happen at one time. I mean, we're going to get all this done.
William Waldrop of TWFG Insurance cares. He cares about his customers, their families, and the Livingston Parish community. Call William Waldrop today for all your insurance needs at 225-667-2040. TWFG Insurance and William Waldrop. Their policy is caring. And they're a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. let's talk about zoning a little bit. And I know that you have already passed zoning. Technically, you've just got to get these maps together and all that. Is that correct?
Well, no, that's incorrect.
Okay.
As a whole, we've passed the language, and we're about to pass the governing, like the language as far as this is R1, this is rural, the categories.
R3.
We've passed that language, and we can still change it, and we will.
Yeah.
We'll add or change some definitions as we go. We just passed that portion. This past meeting, we had it in ordinance committee, and we moved it to we're going to move it for a vote or an introduction, and that's the governing body. So we're going to set the criteria, who's going to be the governing body over directly over the zoning. We were going to make planning and zoning.
Yes.
So we're going to task those guys with doing that.
Good call, I think.
But any rezoning or any variance of that particular zoning criteria, if it doesn't meet exactly, it has to come to the council for a vote. If you meet the criteria straight out, then they will recognize that and go, "You're good." Boom. It doesn't come to us.
Yeah. So one thing I want to mention with zoning, and I've used this example a couple times, but zoning, in my opinion, actually puts more power in the people's hand than ever before. I'll give you an example. The city of Denham Springs has zoning, and they had a major piece of property that was going to be sold to a large apartment complex. Basically, they were going to build luxury apartments, supposedly, by Home Depot, and it was zoned. Currently, it was zoned commercial.
Commercial, yeah.
And they wanted it changed to R3 residential. Well, when something's zoned commercial and you need to change that, you have to go before, in this case, the city council, and they have to approve the change. The people showed up, and all those people that lived around that Home Depot in those neighborhoods said, "We do not want this." And the council, to their credit, listened to the people, and they said, "Nope, we're not going to pass it. Our people don't want it." I don't fault the person trying to sell the property at all. You have a piece of property,
I don't
sell
either.
it. But if it's zoned, you've got to have the council approve to rezone that. Will it be the same situation?
Absolutely. That's kind of the point behind it.
Yeah.
It gives you, at that point, you're no longer hanging on ordinances. It's a step above that allows the council to say nope, or yes or no, and it's there's no second guessing it. There's no end around. There's nothing they can match. You're zoned this way, and I need you to be this. I want it to be this way so I can build whatever. You have the ability to say no or yes. And take that situation. If it was reversed, suppose it was residential, and they wanted it to be commercial. I could see where they could be like, well, that might actually be pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's change that because it's right there behind there. And, we can do a driveway through, or they can figure out something. And the people there might go,
I want a Sonic there.
And you can use the reverse argument.
Yeah.
You can say, well, look, if we don't allow this, I don't know, whatever store to come there, right now it's residential. They could put some apartment complex here. And we won't be able to stop it because they'll be zoned correctly. We can change it now and make a situation potentially not be worse than what you really want. And you can make that argument and probably get the community to some degree on board.
Yeah.
It's what do you want? What do you don't want? So, I mean, it allows you to lay out the development, how you go further. Zoning, and look, it's going to, in my area and like in the Walker area, it's more going to help the residential, I think, areas develop more broadly. We're going to have bigger lots if they develop, at all. But, the infrastructure, the way it is, it's kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad, but in the in the eastern part of the parish, these guys have the opportunity. They have kind of a blank canvas.
Yeah,
they have something they can be like, we can position this like this, and it's going to change over time. We can move this around, and we can change the zoning on this, because you might go commercial. You in your mind, you're thinking this is going to be the commercial area, and we're going to start residential here. Well, over time, it might kind of drift over this way, and then you're like, well, it's actually shaping itself, which is what it does. So then you can change those zoning aspects to match the way the market is kind of making it go on its own.
Yeah.
Or you cannot. You can force it into what you want. Usually there's a middle ground there. You just you figure it out, but you have some control as opposed to the way it is now and the way it's been in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that Ascension's run into an issue where they zone theirs, but they weren't very strict on it. And now it's still happening where we have the opportunity to look at other people's mistakes, right? And we go, "Ooh, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's not go down that path. Let's get ahead of that." And you have to look at what's happening around you and educate yourself. Where we're kind of like that. Well, let's not go down that path. Learn from other people's mistakes, other councils' mistakes, other communities' mistakes, and put yourself there and go, how will I change that to where that won't happen to me in the future?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm doing,
Yeah, I agree 100%. And something that, you were a proponent of for a long time now, something that when it finally goes through, you can hang your hat on as something proud that you spearheaded at one point.
And it's going to be good. It's going to be a good thing. I believe when it passes, and it will, it's going to be I definitely think the strongest piece of single legislation that's ever been through the parish.
I do want to mention LPN, the Livingston Parish News. Every year, I guess y'all renew this journal. You approve this journal.
The official journal.
The official journal, yeah. So those public notices, when you open the paper and you see all these public notices from the parish and things like that are included in that. And it's a major part of their revenue. It's we are very fortunate in Livingston Parish, in my opinion, and I know you spoke on some of this in the council meeting, but very fortunate that we have a privately owned paper here in the parish that is not part of a giant conglomerate.
Yep.
Those are going away, folks, like by the millions. There's very few left. The Livingston Parish News has always been good to me.
Me too.
And good to you. And I think they're a fair paper. And I like the people over there. There's no doubt about it. We had a councilman vote against them, and he made a comment, and the comment that he said was, if they want to know why I voted no, have them be like an official paper and call me, and I'll tell them. My thought is they are an official paper. I don't know what's going on with that, but I just want to speak up for them. And just say that we're fortunate to have the Livingston Parish News in this parish. I'm proud of that paper.
Look, they like I said in the meeting, and you'd kind of touched on. It's the news is getting a lot of these newspapers, a lot of these publications are being bought up by a single entity, and eventually you're going to get all your news from one source, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can see that. I mean, anybody can see when all your news is coming from one source. It's an avenue for bad things. The Livingston Parish News is an institution. It's over 100 years old.
Over 100 years old,
and it was. I think they're worth protecting. Yeah. I think they're worth protecting at a minimal amount of money, and we need an official journal. And look, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people still buy the paper. A lot of people, I buy it too. I mean, I get the digital form.
Mm-hmm. I go into Carter's and get
and I'll buy a printed one every now and then. But I get the digital form so I can look at it on my phone. But there's a lot of people that especially a lot of the older generation, they still want that physical paper in their hand, And it is costly to do that, and but they still do it. They offer that, and I think there's something to be said about saving an institution instead of going digital on everything. I like it. I think they've always been fair to me. I think they report the news fair and accurate and down the middle, and I think it's something worth preserving. And that was just my point.
I agree 100%. And most of the council agreed. 8 approval votes for that, 1 dissenting being John Wascom's. One company in particular I wanted to address is Quality Engineering, which is a firm that, thank God, they handle a lot of these developments that come into the parish because they're so familiar with the parish. They've caught a ton of flack from some people in this parish for even being a part of, well, Dare Run is the development we've been talking about today, but they're part of the majority of them. Can't tell you how much these people do for this parish that nobody knows. They are very giving people. They are involved heavily in a lot of nonprofits in this area, Chamber of Commerce, all those things that support the parish relative to, hopefully seeing it grow in a positive way. They're engineers. They're not developers, number one, and you got to have somebody engineering this stuff. And so your choices are basically you have these people engineering it that are, winning these bids that are from here, that know the area, know the layout, know the drainage, know the problems.
Yep. Know the people
and care and are investing in this community of themselves, or you hire a company out of Texas that care less about Livingston Parish. Right?
Well, and look, Quality Engineering did the engineering for Foxglove, which is the big development that happened in my district a few years back.
Yep.
And look, I beat them up.
Sure.
I beat them up over every little thing. I told them, I'm not giving you an inch of ground on anything. And I did not.
Yeah.
The only thing I gave them ground on was they wanted to put in a temporary sewage plant while their other one was being built. Mm-hmm. It's a portable plant. And of course I said no. But then they said, well, look, it was a $100,000 temporary plant. But they said, well, if you let us do that, we'll give the parish the plant so they can move it around and use it in places that are problematic while they're fixing stuff. And I said, well, you're going to build it anyway. Yeah. So we might as well get something free out of it.
Yeah.
And so I did give the waiver on that.
Yeah.
And that's just honesty up front. I mean, they were going to build it anyway.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads to the whole point of this. Somebody was going to be the engineering firm for that French settlement area, for that development.
Yes.
Why would you not want the guy that lives there, knows the community, knows the people, knows the problems, and he's going to address those? And a lot of things probably got addressed that weren't brought to the attention of the developer. I mean, I don't know, but I'm assuming Derek said we need to do this because that'll help this. Things you would only know if you live there.
That's right.
And look, I get it. Look, if you become the engineer of record, you're going to get beat up. It's part of the job.
Sure.
You're going to get beat up. Like, I beat them up. He's going to get beat up over there. And because somebody's doing it. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you in the respect that if you want the somebody to be somebody not someone who doesn't live here, doesn't have an investment here. Do you think it would have done better if Quality wouldn't have been there?
Yeah.
If Mr. Murphy and them wouldn't have been there. Do you think it would have been not happened if someone else would have come and done it? No. It would not have been done as good. It would not have. There would have been details that would not have been covered. I know this. I just knowing the man, knowing the company, and look, like I said, I have beat him up on stuff before, but I also know he does try, and he will go out there and walk out and sell stuff to the developer. A lot of times that he don't have to do.
Right.
And that's just being honest. He didn't have to do that. They didn't have to bend, but he did it just to move things along and make things smoother. They could have stood their ground and said no, and the ordinances would have been right on it. But no, he wanted to make it better and wanted it to be a better situation. And I have no doubt that is what's happening there.
I agree 100%. And my whole point to all that is don't confuse the fact of whether you agree or disagree with anything as someone involved in that being a bad person.
Yeah.
They are good people. Yeah. And they are very giving to this parish. They're just flat out good people. I know Derek and his wife.
Yep.
And so, keep those comments on the form of business would be my advice, and don't attack people personally.
No.
Over something you don't agree with that is going on in business. It's that just gets ugly, and it serves nobody, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help move things along. Now for you, man, you got a lot of work still yet to do, but y'all are just killing it. No rest for the weary.
Well, it doesn't end.
No.
And that's good. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because, if you do the job and you do this, then, there's always room to improve. There's always something to be done. There's always work to be done. And, as long as the people have me there, I'll do it,
Yeah.
and I will do what's best for my community, because at the end of the day, I still live here, and I'm never going to leave.
No.
And I want it to be done right. And, I've devoted years of my life to learning this craft, and it's a learning process. But I think in the end that, we're going to have a better product, if you just, and not to knock anybody that that was in office before me, because those guys did the same thing. They worked hard. They're all good guys. Sure. And I think most are, if from any council and at any level, people just want to, make something better of their community and move it along in a position to where we try to maintain our way of life as it is, as best we can. Yeah. And I know that Walker will never be what it was, but it doesn't have to be something that I don't like or I don't recognize.
That's right.
And so we fight the fight, and it's always going to be a fight. But I think the rules and the regulations and the ordinances and the zoning, all those things are absolutely essential. Once you do that, then it becomes a ship you can steer.
100%.
And that's what we're working toward. And I think we're going to be good for it. I know we are.
I know you are too, and look, spoken from nobody loves Walker more than Tracy Girlinghouse. I can tell you that.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that love it as much,
but not more.
Nobody loves it more.
No, he loves Walker, and look, I'm a denim guy, and very, very proud to see that Walker is really moving in a positive direction. Has been for a long time. And we love that, no matter where you're from in the parish. So great, you've been doing a great job.
Thank you, brother.
Keep it up on that front. And I do want to say, I really enjoy doing these Listen Up Livingston podcasts. It helps me to enables me to get these councilmen and mayors and all that stuff on the show, and reach out to you guys that maybe don't have time or whatever to go to council meetings, and you're kind of curious as to what's going on. I do want to say one thing. If you're a council member, because I had a few comments on a video asking why I didn't have certain councilmen on there. I want to say, look, I've got an open invite in here to anyone in public office, period. I don't care if you're the assessor, the mayor, the councilman. I want to talk to you. I want to find out where your head's at. I may not agree with everything that you say. That's okay. Minds can disagree and still get along.
Absolutely.
But I would love to have you on, and I will give you the opportunity to give your viewpoint on whatever it is. All you got to do is reach out to me. You can email me, shoot me a message on Facebook, and we will schedule a time. I will get you on. I'd love to have any of you on the show. I appreciate everybody listening, watching. Tracy, anytime, man. Anytime you want to come back.
I appreciate you having me here. This is always
I love it.
I try not to do that too many podcasts, or because I want to have something important to say.
Sure.
I think a lot of times people get out there and they just, I want something to say before, when
something
I'm out
new.
there. So,
yeah. Something fresh and new. And look, you have plenty on this one. Some things been going on since last time you and I sat down. So, but anytime you want to come back, you got something you want to get out there, I'd be glad to have you. Thank you everyone for watching the show. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe. Any thoughts you got? Just put them in the description of this video and the comment section, and we will definitely get those to Tracy if you got an idea for him or something.
Absolutely,
he'd love to hear it. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm Jim Chapman reminding you: love your community, support local business, and keep leading. Thank you very much.